rest of the world. You have a reductionist neuroscientist in a lab in Tucson, and they're going to be able to learn things from students, from our elders, about things that maybe they haven't thought about. I'm tremendously excited to have that cross fertilization. We're kicking off our program with a blessing way ceremony here in a traditional hogan on the Navajo Nation, and we're all going to benefit from the blessing that a singer from the Navajo people are going to bless us with.
Your hope for this program, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, when it is, you have students who have graduated and have come back to the Navajo Nation or working other places, what kind of conversation or things you hope that you can say about this program 8 years from now?
Dene is the Navajo word for the people. The land is the Dene tongue. And our students are connected, and the purpose of Dene College is to help them maintain that connection. I don't want to program our students. I want to give our students the opportunity to realize their vision for themselves. And so whether it's remaining on the Navajo Nation, whether it's going off to Johns Hopkins or the Mayo Clinic to do, a 40-year career in cutting-edge research, that's their vision that I want to enable. If they're happy 10 years from now, we'll have been a success.
Thank you all so much for sharing a bit about this program. Fred Boyd, he is a biologist at Dene College, and Geraldine Garrity is provost at Dene College on the Navajo Reservation. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Know what's going on here, across the country, and around the world. A different kind of eye-opener than your morning coffee, but an important one. Morning Edition with me, Jennifer Lynn. Supporting WHYY Walnut Street Theater. On Facebook. Adaptation of Margaret for tickets, walnutstreettheater.org. That's walnutstreettheater.org. And the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership. Since becoming employee-owned in 2001, the Lake Urban Engineers have seen increased productivity and creating value for the firm and staff. Learn more at ownershippennsylvania.org/WHYY. And WHYY and staff. Bristol School's community banking means more than just having local offices. When communities succeed, they succeed. With the U.S. FS Bank, we stand for service. Member FDIC equal housing member.
Still ahead this hour on Here and Now. Conversation with Beth Gardner, author of 27 books. Here and Now comes from the listeners of WEEU. I'm Glenn Clark, serving students with faculty specializing in LD support. She has a bachelor's degrees, a rich experience for students transitioning to college, online programs, and training for educators. More at ldbridge.com. And NPR in the morning edition on this station tomorrow morning. News, interviews, and analysis for the day ahead. National, international, and local news. Tomorrow on Morning Edition. This is Here and Now from NPR and WPR. I'm Jeremy House. Open higher this morning on Wall Street as investors reacted to the resumption of trade talks with China today, and to the Federal Reserve's decision yesterday to cut interest rates again by a quarter of a point. The rate cut was described by Fed Chair Jerome Powell as an preemptive attempt to rule except for lower interest rates. As I will explain shortly, we took this step to help keep the U.S. economy strong in the face of some government developments and to provide insurance for ongoing risks. Let's bring in forecast for global economic growth. It now expects global GDP to rise by 2.9% this year. That's the lowest since 2009. Is the Fed doing what the Fed's doing because it's scared that that global slowdown is going to spread to the U.S.?
On the margin, I think we're in that tricky stretch when you're not quite sure the markets want good or bad economic news. I mean, the latter, of course, providing more justification for the Fed to keep cutting. If you're the United States, you would love for the global economy to be growing, just shy of inflation, not too hot. That you see commodity prices shoot higher, but not so weak that our exports suffer.
So is the Fed scared?
The Fed eyes are open and could do another rate cut. And clearly, Donald Trump is over there saying that you need to take them to zero, and it's not very smart what you did. You failed again. Presidents love easy money. I'm not so sure the Fed is scared. And if you looked at the Fed as a whole, all of the governors, all the different regional presidents, there's hardly unanimity.
You've heard the president saying that rates should be cut to zero. There are many who would say you shouldn't cut rates down to zero when times are good. And it is President Trump himself who has said this is the greatest economy in the history of America. Because if you cut rates down to zero when times are good, what do you do if there's a recession?
That's true. And presidents, they love easy money. It keeps the economy and the markets stoked. You've never had any president out there, I don't think Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, anyone say, no, the Fed should hike and break the back of inflation. And look, if you see the financial crisis like you saw here a decade ago, you saw our central bank not only take rates to zero, but do desperate things to get people to go out and take risks again. So it's not exactly an envious period when you have rates at zero.
What about the trade talks that have resumed today in Washington between China and the U.S.? Now, these are not the highest level. It's not President Trump and President Xi having these talks. These are lower level talks laying groundwork for higher level talks, which are scheduled for next month.
I think if you have me read the tea leaves the day of, whatever that day is scheduled next month, I mean, that's when we should have the conversation, because from a day-to-day basis, there's so much saber rattling. These imperial pronouncements over Twitter, unconfirmed reports of breakthroughs. You have a picture of the president on the phone, and then the market rallies, and the market sells off. And the question just remains, and somebody has to answer this for me, which side can take more pain in the interim to force the other side in the position? And I'm not sure that we know that yet. The U.S. seems like the healthiest player in the global economy. China has a lot to lose, but these economies are so inextricably linked that you don't want to get to the point of mutual assured destruction.
Well, and China has been hedging its bets, if you will, and doing a lot more trade, cutting tariffs on other countries so that it can do trade while the tariffs are so high with the U.S. So they've found a way, and maybe the U.S. has found ways around the trade war as well. Robin Farzad, host of Public Radio's Full Disclosure, thank you.
My pleasure.
You're listening to Here and Now.
And the people who knock these buildings down will hear all of it soon.
18 years after 9/11, the United States and the Taliban appeared close to making peace. But when a Taliban bomb killed a U.S. soldier in Afghanistan, President Trump ended peace talks instead.
Signal, I think, is being sent that we're done, we're out, good luck.
The shifting currents of America's longest war on the next morning edition from NPR News.
Tomorrow from 5 to 9 on WHYY.
I'm Susan Levy. Russia and China have vetoed a resolution backed by the vast majority of United Nations Security Council members. It calls for a ceasefire in Syria's northwestern Idlib province, the country's last rebel stronghold. The resolution demanded that counter-terrorism activities comply with international humanitarian law. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Washington is taking back $100 million intended for an Afghan energy infrastructure project, citing unacceptably high levels of corruption in the Afghan government. Pompeo said the U.S. will still finish the massive project. It just won't be spending the money through Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's government. And U.S. home sales rose 1.3% in August to the highest level in 17 months. You're listening to Here Now.
Use of the gender-neutral pronoun they has been growing in the United States, and researchers looked into what effect adopting this language can have. We'll hear from one of them still ahead this hour on Here and Now.
Supporting WHYY UPenn. Do you have trouble falling asleep or trouble staying asleep? Do these sleep problems interfere with daily activity? If so, and you are 40 years of age or older, you may be eligible to participate in a research study being conducted at the University of Pennsylvania. Participants will receive a comprehensive sleep evaluation and treatment. More information is available online at sleeplessinphilly.com. That's sleeplessinphilly.com.
WHYY has just opened a new office in Wilmington, Delaware. Our mission to provide informative, entertaining, and localized content is made possible by the loyalty of our listeners. Thank you.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and your NPR station. From Noon, whose yellow, green, and red approach to categorizing food is designed to help people make improved meal choices with the goal of losing weight and keeping it off for good. Learn more at noom.com. And the New York Times, in partnership with WBUR, presenting Modern Love, the podcast, stories of love, loss, and redemption, performed by actors like Stanley Tucci and Kate Winslet. New episodes every Thursday, available on Apple Podcasts.
This is Here and Now. All this week we're joining in on Covering Climate Now, a global collaboration of news outlets aiming to strengthen climate change coverage. Obviously, a big driver of carbon emissions is the burning of fossil fuels and other things, but that burning also leads to air pollution, which can be deadly. Beth Gardner has just written a book about that called Choked: Life and Breath in the Age of Air Pollution. She joins us now. Welcome.
Hi, glad to be with you.
So let's start with the fact that air pollution and climate change are distinct but also deeply connected. Explain how they are connected.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they are separate things and separate problems unto themselves. I mean, air pollution, the best estimates are that it's killing 100,000 Americans every year, 7 million people around the world. So I think, by any reckoning, you would consider that to be deserving of,
Right.
attention and concern on its own merits. But at the same time, it is very deeply intertwined with climate change. They are both symptoms of the same thing, which is this unhealthy foundation we've built our modern world on, fossil fuels. So not exclusively, but very, very largely, what I found as I traveled around the world and reported this story is that the causes of air pollution and climate change overlap to a very large degree.